Let's look at our regular feature on CrimeCon each week in association with CrimeCon, the world's #1 true crime event. We delve into the minds of criminals and those who chase them. From psychology of offenders to forensic breakthroughs and the fight against wrongful convictions, we bring you gripping insights from some of the biggest names in true crime. This week, we're joined by Katherine Schweit, who speaks out about her time as a former senior FBI official in her book, Women Who Talk to the Dead, the true story of 200 forgotten murder victims and the relentless pursuit of justice. And also, as I understand it as well, Katherine, former Detroit police detective too. Have I got that right? Good afternoon to you.
No, not a Detroit police detective, FBI agent for 20 years.
All right. So, sorry, I had it down that you were a FBI agent and a Detroit police detective. So only one.
But I'm from Detroit.
Ah, got it.
Well, Detroit.
That's all right. Listen, the fact is you've been in law enforcement forever and you've worked in a very senior part of that. You've seen it. You've been around the block. You know what a bad crime scene looks like and you know how to solve one. Has it been I'm assuming as well, and when you entered this world, normally in the 21st century, we don't need to mention gender too much, but I think in the world of policing, when you entered this world, I would imagine that was a fairly male-dominated affair, right?
Oh, very much so. You had to decide what position you were going to be, right? Did you want to be one of the guys and be bopped around, or did you want somebody to be constantly lurching all over you, which is disgusting, but happens, right? And so you have to hold your ground. Yeah.
Well, I'm not always easy as well.
No, but I loved it. It was fun to just, it was fun to have the opportunity to do it. And also, you know, women bring a different view. And I think that that's valuable, a lot of times forgotten. And I mean, there were cases where I would get a confession out of somebody. There were things that I worked in the FBI that, you know, the guys on the cases couldn't figure it out.
I'm always intrigued by that. I mean, is there any kind of, I don't know whether research has been done on this. I mean, there might be some people who only talk to guys. I don't know. But I've often heard it said when I've spoken to prison governors, when they've said years ago when they first had female prison guards, it was seen as outrageous. You know, what are you doing bringing, this is a very dangerous terrain. And it turned out to have the very opposite effect and actually caused a sort of a veneer of calmness across certain wings, not with all prisoners, but there was a difference because it was female, not male.
I think it makes a huge difference. I don't think that, especially, you know, a lot of criminals we're dealing with are men, and they don't find a woman, even in law enforcement, intimidating. And sometimes they're kind of bragging. I had a guy say to me once, well, I made more than $1 million last year, but don't tell the IRS. He's talking to an FBI agent.
Yeah,
I never paid taxes.
That's not a good thing to tell an FBI agent, unless you wanted to be super nice and just say, I won't tell them, don't worry.
Yeah, they do. I know that. Well, which is, of course, probably what I said, right? I was like, your secret's safe with me, buddy.
Indeed.
And then I sent him to jail, right? So I think they don't find us intimidating, so they'll say stuff to us that they wouldn't say to guys.
Yeah, I think, I mean, that's pretty easy to follow that, and I guess that happens, and certainly with this book, Women Who Talk to the Dead, this is a mission, as I understand it, has gone on over many years, trying to sort of match cold cases, cases that previously were unable to be sorted and solved, but DNA matching and all sorts of other progress has meant that you've been able to at least try. Is that about right?
Yeah, what happened is, it really for me is the FBI agent who's leading this effort is a friend of this Detroit detective, and the FBI agent is a longtime friend of mine. She was telling me one day about this. It turns out that this Detroit detective got assigned to these missing person cases several years ago, and she began to see that her missing person cases were overlapping with her cold case murders she couldn't solve. And it was frustrating to her. And she went to my friend Leslie Larson and said, you know, I'm calculating that we have maybe 300 cold case murders, and about 200 of them we don't know. And when I say cold case murders, I'm sorry, I should back up and say every one of them was an unidentified victim.
All right.
So that was really the problem, because somebody dies, they're murdered, they're thrown in the river in Detroit, or, you know, their face is blown off and their body is, whatever's left of it is pushed into a grave, in a pauper's grave in the cemetery out in the west of the city. And then they're buried like that, one on top of the other. And law enforcement has really no chance to get any other evidence from the body or records that might be there. And so what Leslie Larson and Shannon Jones from the Detroit Police Department, she's the detective, decided to do is Shannon talked Leslie into just digging them up. So for 5 years, they've been digging these bodies up to get DNA.
Wow.
It's pretty crazy.
And it's hard enough, isn't it, when you have a name but no other detail, but to have no name at all, I mean, that's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, it's, you know, having worked, I was a prosecutor in Chicago before I was an FBI agent. It is so hard to work a case when you have an unnamed victim. You don't know what doors to knock on. Nobody's coming to you saying, hey, my mom's missing, my brother disappeared. You don't have anything to go on. No place to say, oh, this person used to work here. If there isn't some, you know, pocket litter, as we call it, right, in their possession when they die, and there's something we can take out of their pockets that maybe ties them to a location, you got nothing to go on. And so they had more than 200 cases that had been stretched out over 70 years, not related cases, not serial murders, but each individual case with no leads to go on. And a lot of people were murdered in the 60s and the 70s in Detroit. It was the murder capital of the world in the 1970s. And so, you know, law enforcement really did like the low-hanging fruit. I mean, are you going to go after the white teenage girl who lives in the suburbs, who's a cheerleading coach or cheerleading lead, and the parents are looking for her? Are you going to look for the murderer of a 17-year-old or a 15-year-old girl who seems to be from a minority group and a runaway and found on the street?
Yeah. In terms of success, tell us a little bit about that, Katherine, because, you know, finding and identifying a body is one thing, but taking that to its next conclusion, you know, what happened and who was responsible is quite another.
Absolutely, right. So the biggest thing, I think, that I was surprised even myself when I started to interview, I spent all this time, the photos you're seeing, I spent a lot of time out at the cemeteries seeing how they did this. I really wanted to tell the story of the women and the people who were doing the work and decided to do it, because that story's really never been told. We hear about exhumations, but then it leads to some conviction. What we never hear about is, how do they get the bodies? How do they get the DNA? And so far, they've actually dug up 220 bodies and pulled bones. And all of those bones have then had to go to laboratories, some of them FBI laboratories, to get the DNA. And they don't even have all the results yet. So I put the book together saying, here's where we are. And then I'm going to have to follow it up with, here's how they solved and what they solved. But they have identified their about 30 some victims have already been identified by name and reconnected with family members. So that's the most astonishing part. Shannon knocking on a door saying, your mom was pregnant with you when you disappeared. Your dad disappeared. The reason he disappeared is he was murdered down in Detroit. And let me tell you where he's buried.
So there's going to be some sad conclusions, naturally, to this. Whilst it is, you know, clearly a massive step to be able to identify someone, the story, it does take on those tentacles of, you know, families ripped apart, bereavement, people who were hoping maybe for, you know, one day they'll hear a good story, but then they hear a knock on the door, which is not so good. I suppose as well, in your world, crime fighting through advancement in technology has been huge at that time. It's accelerated at such a rapid rate as well. I mean, DNA we know about. There's all manner of other things that can happen. You haven't just got to watch CSI to know just how advanced things are these days, right? Right.
When I first started in court, you know, they didn't have DNA, but there were so many other technological things that, you know, fingerprints where you just got with ink, now you can get a fingerprint off of something that's a gun that's in the water. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do incredible forensic work, and what they're able to do with these cases, you know, as an example, you know, one of the victims that they've already identified, reconnected with the family members and solved the murder is the murdered victim was strangled, cut into pieces, and left in a building that they lit on fire. Like, how do you identify that?
Yeah.
Technology, right? Forensic work, the work that we really could never do before. And that's the amazing part of these stories.
Absolutely. I was watching a crime thing. It was about a British case, but, you know, some cop came on with, I don't know what the heck he had in his hand. He was firing this light at a wall, and it showed up. I was straight onto Amazon, to be honest, Katherine, seeing if I could buy one of these things. It was like a proper boy's gadget. I thought, this is amazing. They probably cost about $10,000 or something. But nonetheless, to see a crime scene to what it was back in the day, it's unrecognizable, right?
Yeah, boys and their toys. That's what we always call them at the FBI, since I'm one of the few. Boys and their toys.
Absolutely.
But there's nothing more amazing than, you know, now we 3D image a crime scene. You know, when the FBI comes on scene, other law enforcement comes on scene, they bring in the tools to take the whole scene and do all the, you know, the camera work to build a 3D image so they can see where, you know, where every single bullet goes. I'm a mass killing expert. That's actually my area of expertise, and that's what I work on here in the United States, and what I worked on until I left the FBI. And the shooting at a theater that we had here, hundreds of rounds that go out. Now we can do a 3D projection that shows where every single round goes. I couldn't even imagine that when I first started in law enforcement. And now we know where every single bullet is accounted for, whether it's shrapneled or not. It's crazy.
It is crazy. Well, listen, Katherine, thank you for speaking with us. We really appreciate your time. Katherine Schweit, who will be there as well, speaking at CrimeCon, the world's #1 true crime event. And of course, it was a successful weekend a few weeks back in London. The next one is in Manchester on September the 27th this year. If you've enjoyed today's episode, remember you can download and listen to all the Talk Crime podcasts on your favourite podcast app.